Wasim sir, are you with us?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes,
Ji
sir,
sir,
you are.
you are.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Hira. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you for this very interesting topic and hot topic for which is being discussed and a must know for all financial professionals. Uh, Financial pathway for climate action, instrument and loans. As we all know that the global shift towards sustainability is not just an environment responsibility, it is a financial challenge and opportunity. In this session, we will explore how innovative financial tools, green financing, and sustainable loans structure can support real climate action and long-term growth. Whether you are in finance, policy, or business, today's discussion will offer insight that matters. Thank you for joining. Luckily, we have a very interesting, good person who is a guru in this area, Mr. Sajid Aslam. He has over 20 years of speaking assignment in last 5 years, mainly World Economic Forum, United Nations Environment Programs, and if I start counting those, it will take too much time. So he has, mashallah, very good experience, and I'm very thankful to him that on our branch council invitation, he accept our offer and he's delivering his valuable knowledge to all of us. So on behalf of KSA branch, I welcome you, and it's over to you, Mr. Sajid.
Thank you, Hira, and thank you very much, Wasim sir, for such kind words. Uh, I think if you look back in the history, like how we have seen the different economic cycles over the period. So this particular era which we are in right now, it's specifically there are two areas which are disrupting the economic models as well as the supply chain, if I may say. So the one thing is definitely AI, and the second part which we are seeing again and again is the climate change. Climate change is something which is recognized as a challenge initially, as a risk, but now over the period what we have learned, it's a one of our opportunity to reset how we really do the business, how we evaluate the investments, and that might help us to create those climate action which can help the generations to come to really use all the natural resources which Allah Almighty has provided to us on this earth. So if we are going towards that, one of a key learning from history again, anything when we talk about the transition or change, that requires a massive investments. And today we will be talking about more on an investment side, that how those transition plans which we are going to implement to address the climate risks and opportunity, how that funding can work, where those loans and what are those new financial instruments which can be used to really fund those transitions. There's a lot of, particularly if somebody coming from the US side, so you will find a lot of controversies whether the climate action is something which should be a focus or climate action is something which should not be a focus. In a very recent past, there is another conversation, and that's coming from the ninth edition of FII Summit as well, that whether the cost of living and humanitarian crisis are the primary one, or we are talking about climate action as a one of a key challenge. So how we should prioritize those. And these are the interesting integrations and the debate that how we should look at the business or a risk in totality. So we have seen the climate action generating a cost of living and the humanitarian crisis. We have seen the climate induced disasters which are wiping off the economies as well. So that's created a different kind of crisis at the same time. So now these crises, it's just the discussion about what is the cause and what is the impact. So that's where the finance professionals comes into play where they start looking at the things objectively and start addressing the causes and the impact at the same time. So they can identify objectively that what they need to focus on, how they will run their materiality assessment, how they find the critical topics, and how they are going to address. And right now, today's our conversation will be more around the investment and the business side of it, that how we can address these challenges and opportunity from a business side, and how it can help us to maintain the economic growth, not only for the country, but also for the business as a entity at the same time. So just to give you another interesting statistics to understand the importance of climate action, in the next 3 to 5 years, there's a $68 trillion which is going to be inherited by the younger generation. So there's an intergenerational transfer of wealth happening, which is $68 trillion. And these transfers, or the people who are going to inherit that, they are very eco-conscious people. They still need all the luxuries, but at the same time, they are conscious about what kind of carbon footprint they are generating and what they are doing to make sure that the impact on the earth and our living and livelihood, that should not create a challenge for the other human being. So they are very eco-conscious people, which we are talking about, who are going to inherit that one. What does it mean? $68 trillion, when we talk about it, these are the people who are the primary investors, and they are the one who are the primary consumers, and they are the one who create the influence on the rest of the businesses. And that is creating a certain level of urgency, because the mandate of investments, whether we are talking about a banking loan, or we are talking about the equity, or we are talking about the investment in the capital market, tier 1 capital, tier 2 capital, all this is going to be influenced with the thought process which this new generation is going to bring to the table. At the same time, when we look at the business side, so whatever we are producing, and particularly the production of the high-end and the luxury product, they are the primary consumer as well. So the entire value chain which is associated with those production, they are going to change how they really build the narrative and position their product as a green product, or as a product which is eco-friendly. So that's mean on the both sides, the mandate for investment is going to have, and already have, we will see in the KSA in certain areas, is going to mandate the green or the environment and social risk to be evaluated and addressed. At the same time, from a business side, who are producing, whether a real estate we are talking about, whether we are talking about the luxury good, we are talking about the automobile, we are talking about the services, when these people are going to choose, they are going to choose not only based on the utility of that particular product or service, but also around how green that product and service is. So that is going to influence the businesses and the value chain of those businesses across the board, that how the production or the service development should happen going forward. A lot of organizations have already incorporated or integrated these concepts in their businesses, but they are still, it's an evolving space. A lot of people are right now at the learning stage, and they are incorporating these, or they are learning what is material for them. Just to give you a little bit introduction, Wasim Sir was kind enough to share initially. So my name is Sajid Aslam. I'm an accountant, and I'm qualified in the ESG investing and also partnerships and collaboration from INSEAD. I'm partner in Spectrico LLC USA. It has got a presence in 9 different countries, including KSA. So my past experience include working with the governments and the private sector, which include investors, regulators, as well as businesses, that how that climate finance should work, how the taxonomy should work, how we should bring everybody together, whether we are talking about the regulation side of it, or business or investor side of it, how we can really collaborate. We have seen a lot of good learnings from different parts of the world. EU has started on that journey, and then they have to really make some changes. And then we have seen Pakistan as a country who started that, and they started in a very good way, in a very collaborative way, and the implementation of the same regulatory side for investor and businesses, that working out very well. So collaboration is the name of the game, rather than just a directive or a law which can foster everybody to just follow. So compliance is not the thing. which we can bring in this space at just because of a directive, and we have seen that in EU very recently. So there's a lot of capacity building, consultation, technology, data, talent development that need to happen before the massive adoption of these concepts can happen within the investment space or business space. Just to give you a little bit background about Spectraco, so we are primarily a technology and advisory company. We work significantly in built environment and financial services. And built environment means real estate, hospitality, hotels, hospitals, anything which has something to do with the infrastructure. And the financial services cover the capital market, banks, insurance, asset management, private equity. We are headquartered from US, and we are working in both the market where the regulatory compliance is already implemented, and the other market, which is like the US market, which is very market driven, return focused markets. And in US, there are already 25 plus states who have signed up for Paris Agreement, when as a federation, they backed out from them. And there is a lot of regulation which is coming out at a state level, but there is a financial return which has been understood, or a financial risk which has been understood in US, that why they should be focusing on that. And the recent flood and the wildfires are a couple of examples which has created a financial risk. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a presence in 9 different countries. We are headquartered from US. We have got presence in Europe, UK, Finland. We have presence in Oman, KSA, UAE and Pakistan, and then we have a presence in Malaysia side as well. Just to give you the size of the issue which is identified, the climate and the social risks and opportunities are converted into the financial risks and opportunity now. So it's now considered as a financial risks. And the example, if you have seen the wildfire or you have seen the floods recently in different part of the world, it's always end up with the financial loss and the economic losses for the countries, like in Pakistan, as well as we have seen that in a climate change impact in UAE, we have seen in Europe, we have seen in KSA. So a lot of climate related changes or risk or climate induced disasters, sometimes we are unable to recognize the economic loss it generates, not for immediate impact of the economic loss, but also the living and livelihood challenges it creates for the general public and citizen across the board. So right now, if you look at the real estate as a sector, like the built infrastructure, so it's $635 trillion which are exposed to physical and transitional risk. At the same time, if you look at the financial market at the end of 2024, it's $419 trillion which are exposed to climate and social risk side of it. There is a certain overlap between the real estate which is invested through the financial markets. And if you look at the city government, so there are 4,000 plus city governments who are right now competing to access the climate finance to comply with the SDG and the climate related goals in general. Right now, if you look at again where we are right now, our commercial engagement, so we are working with the investment houses, we are working with the businesses, we are working in the real estate and the financial services. We have been quoted on BBC, Bloomberg, Forbes, Guardian. So there's a lot of conversation, or our content, or our sound bites which are being used there to really elaborate and explain that what the climate risk is and what are the impact on the general public as well as on the investment. Our biggest strength is that we help simplify everything. We really create and convert everything into a bite-sized, digestible conversation where organization or investor can start from a step 1, 2, 3, and they exactly know where to start with. A general confusion is that ESG, it's a great space. There is some relevance to me, but what is the starting point? So today we will be discussing some of the starting points here, and then we will take question and answer to elaborate on those further. From an innovation perspective, we have recently launched Sharia compliant ESG index that was actually launched in Medina, and it was inaugurated by the governor of Medina. And subsequently, we launched the same thing in Turkey, and the president of Turkey has inaugurated those sessions. So the ESG and Sharia compliance put together with the financial performance and liquidity. So all those four key components or a key pillar which can help any organization to channelize capital or allocate capital to right or important climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience initiative. And this is something which was the core for this particular financial product which we have created to really help OIC in journal that how we can do a capital allocation specifically in a halal supply chain, infrastructure, data center, and education side. Just to look at the framework and the MRV. So I start with the basic dashboard, and I'll spend a 1 minute that what someone need to crack. So this is a one of an example coming from the city government or industrial estate, that how many plots we have, what is the level in square meter, how much land we have, how many businesses are already there, how many nationalities are there, what are the local employment worth, what is the AQI in that industrial state, uh, how much waste is being generated, how much waste is being recycled, and then going to the very core ESG KPIs, that how the emissions are working, how much energy is consumed, what is the water recycling percentage, how we are diverting the waste, what is the investment level, and what is the satisfaction level. And then there is a trend analysis coming from history, that how the energy by source is happening and how it's going to happen for the next 5-6 years. Similarly, energy consumption per meter square per year, how it's changing, what is the net investment level, what is the new investment level. And then at the bottom, you can see some of the projects which are going on, whether we talk about the tree plantation, water treatment, upskilling, reskilling, mass transits, or a certification. So this is an example for accountants, and particularly the finance professional or a management, what to track and what to look around. So you can see there are certain baseline and there is a certain targets as well. So this is a one way to look at your overall sustainability journey or the progress towards the sustainability journey. And this will require a lot of data and the AI to really understand what kind of material topic for that specific industry which they need to track, and how we are performing against those material topics. And then we come to the how we can implement that. What is the step one we should be looking at? And again, an example of a dashboard, that what to track and how to track scenarios. So the first step is always start with the stakeholder motivation, that what is actually you would like to achieve. If you are oil and gas industry, what is your key narrative? You want to become a green energy company going forward. And if it's a green energy company, what does it mean? What you need to change? How you are going to get the investment side of it? If you are a real estate company and you talk about that, you are going to be a green living scenario, and there are examples of the buildings which are going for green, and there is a green building code already implemented in in KSA right now. And if you are going with that narrative like 2030 vision, and your vision, your narrative is aligned with that vision given your industry, so what is the business case? How you will be making money? What is the return on investment? And investment is not only the money, but it's the time and effort as well, the human resource who is working on those kind of projects. How you are going to understand this ROI model based on the narrative you have built, like your position going forward based on your sector. And then step 3, to understand the material topic. There are 800 plus variables which are linked with the ESG performances. You might need to just work on 10, 20, maximum 30 key material topics across environment, social, and governance side of it. So what are those material topics? That's the step 3. And then we come to the step 4, whatever the material topics you have selected, like if you can see on the dashboard on the right side, so it has got emission scope 1, 2, 3. It has got something to do with the trainings. It has something to do with the energy. So if these are the material topics, that how your target is aligned with the national directives and the industry benchmarks. So after the material topic, the step 4 is all about the target setting, because the target will determine what kind of initiatives you need to know or you need to undertake. and how you are going to finance that. So once the material topics are identified, targets are aligned, we come to the topic step 5, which is the transition plan. Transition plans are the interventions which you are going to undertake to achieve those targets. We normally start with the no cost or low cost transition plan and bring it to the level where it's required certain kind of investments. And that's where the financing comes into play. So our today's topic is more focused on step 4 and 5. And subsequently, once you are doing that, then you have to track the progress, you have to create the dashboard and reporting, you have to report it back to your stakeholder, whether they are investment or management. And then step 8 is always going back using those dashboard and data and having a meaningful engagement with the government, investor, businesses, media, and partners. So this is normally the implementation framework starting from step 1 and going to step 8. But today's our topic is step 4 and 5, which we will be focusing on. So let's look at the Vision 2030. So we are now on a step 4 that you have got a certain national targets, which all the organizations and the investor, they need to align in a due course. And it has got the National Transformation Program. So if we look at the Vision 2030, it has got underneath the 2030, there are different programs to really achieve the vibrant society, thriving economy, and ambitious nation as an outcome. So for that, there are programs which are called National Transformation Program, the Financial Sector Development Program, which is very much focused on the financial services, green product, new instrument, and the compliances side of it. National Industrial Development and Logistic Program, which is looking at how we are going to be to increase the output and efficiency, but at the same time, there is an environmental impact which is embedded there. Public Investment Fund, PIF, they have got their own green investment framework at the same time, or a green financing framework. Then we have got a human capital development program, which is for the university, and that's also include the sustainability and the climate as a part of that program. And then we have got Then we have got a health sector transformation program. This is again from the human capital perspective and the nation perspective. This is also something which is an important component, but it still have got a certain E part, but it's significantly focused on the S part, or social side of it, and the governance of that program. And to enable that, and we are still talking about the KSA as a major as a major jurisdiction. To enable that, there's a key legal and regulatory enablers. So renewable energy regulation and national renewable energy program, that's one of a regulatory program which is incorporated. That's been everybody, whether you are a building, you are an industry, you are a energy producer or a transmission company, you have to comply with that. Saudi Green Initiative and Circular Carbon Economic Policy. Again, this is a regulation and the legal side, and the compliance will be required in a due course. Capital Market Authority's Green Finance Guidelines. So again, Tadawul has also issued a Green Finance Guidelines. Public-private partnership laws, that how the two private sector and public sector is going to work together. And this law also defines the consideration on a social and environment both sides. Then there's a reporting side of it, which is a climate risk disclosure and ESG reporting regulation that's applicable to a certain high emitter right now, but that's gradually coming to the listed companies and also going towards the smaller company or a value chain of that in the next 3 to 5 years. Localized content, waste management and circular economy regulation. Again, it's going to support the overall environmental impact. Carbon capture and usage and storage policy. So every new fossil fuel based energy generation plant, they have to comply with the carbon capture, usage and storage policies going forward. And to enable that, there's a PIF, which has got a $20 billion plus in a green investment. The partnership, public-private partnership and international partnership financing available. There's a multilateral and development bank, like we are talking about the World Bank, ADB, Asian Development Bank. All these banks have also provided the certain funding in terms of concessional loans and grants to enable the green initiative. From an environment and sustainability initiative perspective, Saudi Green Initiative again has overall $186 billion plus investment in emission reduction, afforestation, and ecosystem protection. So that's mean any business who is working towards that kind of transition plan within their business, they can also access that kind of funding from SGI. Nature-based solution, 30% of land conservation and 10 billion trees plantation. That is going to change how we look at the real estate or urban living or city development. So there is a certain consideration coming from that side. Renewable energy projects, solar, wind, waste management, even the waste to energy projects, the 50% of electricity has to move towards renewable going forward. Green Riyadh and urban greening efforts again linked with the urban settings, as well as the guidance coming from the building codes and the green building codes as well. So how the urban living is going to evolve going forward, that's an important component within KSA. From an institutional and academic support perspective, government ministry and regulatory bodies like the Capital Market Authorities, Saudi Energy Company, CMA, Research Center.
Wasim bhai, please mute your mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sajid sir, sorry.
No, sorry. That's fine. That's fine. So there are research center like the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. So they are also supporting businesses and investors to understand the space better. Also coming up with the technology and solutions which can help businesses to really do the transition towards the decarbonized or low carbon solutions in a cost effective way. So I think that's also worth exploring what's coming out from them. Public-private collaboration platform and innovation hubs, again, how the public-private companies should be working together on these initiatives. So there is a guideline and the support which is available under this initiative. So if we go back and see Vision 2030, which is leading toward the vibrant society and thriving economy and ambitious nation, it has got the programs underneath. Each program is addressing a certain problem or opportunity. And to enable that, there is a legal and regulatory framework available. There is an investment drive available. There are certain standard and initiatives available. And then there is an institutional and academic support available. So if you put together everything, somebody who's looking at this particular area in terms of climate action and you want to move forward within your small, large, or mega businesses, there's a lot of support and regulations which can help you to really create that kind of transition plan, and not only create the transition plan but also access the funding which is relatively comes on a concessional term and also include the grant to a certain extent. Again, if I categorize the priority sector, just to summarize that, which are the sectors? So you can see the dark green and lighter green, that's basically directly talking about how much climate action is incorporated or integrated in that particular priority sector. So if you look at the energy side, so renewable energy is a big thing, real estate and construction, dark green, tourism and entertainment. Tourism is becoming a sustainable tourism is one of a key area which KSA is really excelling. Digital and information technology, data center is something where the greening of data center is working out. Food and agriculture, again, from a biodiversity perspective, there is a certain regulations and limitations, as well as from a responsible consumption side. Healthcare and utility and infrastructure, if you look at that, so utility as an infrastructure, they have got a certain components of energy, as well as the real estate side where they have to comply. Mining and industrial development, dark green. Financial services between the dark and light green, because they have to now, as a financial services, as a bank, as an asset manager, they have to really report to SAMA, the central bank, that how much portfolio is green. That means whatever the investment they are making, either in the form of loan or the renewal of the loan, they have to report back to the central bank that how they are measuring environment and social risk in that. So this is one of our directive which is coming from the central bank for the banks, and that will ultimately all the businesses which are working with banks, particularly on a loan or equity investment side, they have to report their environmental and social footprint. Logistic and supply chain, a big green area where the green is integrated all over the places, and environment and sustainability related hardcore key measures in a regulatory regime, anything to do with the environment and social impact assessment. That is also something which is very much green, and that's a cross-cutting topic which basically impact every other industry, small or big. So I think I'll just go back and help you summarize that, and we will be taking questions at a later stage. The green is something which is going to be there. The climate action is something which we cannot avoid. It's a part of the economic agenda for every country, and it's a part of the social agenda for every other party as well as the countries at a nation or a subnational level. So E and S is already there. Governance has always been there. It's just that now the stress is more around the transparency and accountability. And this is something which is coming as a very strong theme within KSA. KSA Vision 2030, which is just another 5 years away. So that vision has already laid out the programs and the enablers, as well as the regulations, standards, and the guidelines. Some are already there, some are going to be enacted, or directives will be available by March 2026 or maximum May 2026, including the local taxonomy and the reporting guidelines, as well as the guidance for the banks where to invest and where not to invest. So the exclusion as well as the evaluation, both criterias will be rolled out by the central bank. The consultations are already going on, and there's a highly likely that by in the first quarter all these directives will come out. The people who are already part of those consultation, they know that what's coming up, and voluntary adoption is already there for last 2-3 years. If you look at the list of the sector, every sector is being impacted one way or other. So the organization or the investors who are going to get themselves ready for this adoption, they will be the beneficiary of that concessional funding or a grants at the initial stage for their transition plan, because that is going to be limited. The financial resource is going to be limited. So people who will prepare their project and go back to the banks and the financial institutions and the fund with the right kind of project pipeline, they have a high probability to access that concessional funding to really support their transition towards the more net zero future. Now I'll take you a little bit on the global context, and then we will come to the financial the financial instruments and the loan side of it. So there's a one term which we hear a lot is the ESG. It's normally referred to a specific framework where the sustainability is basically represent a generic term to cover everything which can make the life easier and how we can really meet our present need without compromising the future generations by balancing environment, social, and economic factors together. Net zero is a one term which is referred to that we will achieve a decarbonized operations, and net zero doesn't mean that zero emission. Net zero means that if you are you have to still emit carbon dioxide or GHG, then you have to make sure you, as a responsible citizen, you offset that by doing the something right on the other side. But it's only for the after you have gone through your decarbonization effort, and then you go for the offset mechanism either through the carbon credits or through the other mechanisms which are available. Circular economy referred to that reuse, recycling, and regeneration side. Stakeholder capitalism referred to that every stakeholder is important, and you don't have to just look at the shareholder side, but employee, customer, community, partner, environment, everyone should be considered as a part of the stakeholder. Greenwashing is one of a term which everybody has to avoid, and this is basically falsely portraying a company or a product as environment friendly when it's not. Since 2023, there are major fines and penalties which happen at different part of the world. So greenwashing is something where, as an accountant, as a finance professional, this is our core role to make sure if we are going to claim something environment friendly, we can look at the objectively the underlying data and how we are claiming it and whether that can be verified or validated by the third party. And that's also important for the financial instruments which we are going to talk about. Carbon credit is a permit which allow a 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent emission, and that's basically used to offset mechanism to get to the net zero future. That's mean if I'm emitting 10 metric ton of carbon or GHG equivalents, so I can use 10 carbon credit to offset that, and that's the concept of net zero. But to achieve that net on a net basis, like on a using a decarbonization strategies first to reduce it to the minimum level, that once it cannot be reduced further, that's where the carbon credits are applied. If you are keep emitting what you are emitting today without making any decarbonization effort and you try to offset through the carbon credit, that is a borderline greenwashing. The first effort has to go on a decarbonization strategies, and then any residual emission which cannot be removed or reduced further, those are the one which are offset through the carbon credit or other mechanism. Materiality mean identifying those ESG issues which are material or significant for the organization, and that's something which somebody has to focus on. Why ESG matter? Because again, like we initially discussed, overall it's a financial risk which we need to manage, and investors and banks, they use ESG criteria to screen investment. So they are not looking at only the financial performance and liquidity, they are looking at the entire footprint in around the environment and the social side to offset their risk or to manage their risk in terms of exposure, whether it's a physical or transition exposure. Physical exposure mean anything can physically destroy that infrastructure or business. Transition risk being, or a transition risk being that any change of law and directive can significantly impact that business or investment side. So again, when we look at the financial risk, investors look at the credit losses from defaulting borrowers who are exposed to ESG risk. We look at the businesses, so there's a regulatory fines, but most importantly, disruption coming from an unmanaged environment or social issues like floods or wildfires. We look at that side of it, or the global warming can impact the physical infrastructure at the same time. And the government has to really invest high public expenditure on the disaster responses. So for them, it's important that how we are managing the ESG risk as a business, as a city, as a subnational government, or as a national government, because ultimately everything turns out to be an economic loss or economic crisis. From a global landscape, in 2004, we started with the UN Global Compact, where launched that Who Cares When report, introducing the first ESG. 2015, we have seen the UN SDG adoption and the Paris Agreement. In 2020s, we have seen a standard setting like GRI, IFRS, EU directive. So it was more around setting the standards, and by 2023, most of the standards were in place. Since 2024, the capital allocation is linked with the sustainability performance and the climate risk management, and this is our core topic. I hope we have set the background right, and now we can start talking about what the green financial instruments look like. You might have heard the term green bonds, green loans, green grants, green asset-backed securities, credit enhancement guarantees, blue bonds, particularly if you are working with the water side of it, and that has got a different categories around the mitigation, adaptation. So we will be sharing these slides, so that will help you to really go in detail and read that later at some time. There's a green mortgage-backed security, there's a carbon credit and offset we were talking about, there's a green insurance, there's a green collateralized loan obligations as well, which is used by the financial institutions for different kind of projects, or normally the term which we use is a blended finance, where they bundle the loans and the sustainable for the sustainable businesses. Just to give you an example of a green financial instrument framework and how it's look like. So you have to be very clear that what is the purpose of that instrument. So if we take an example of energy transition for an industrial undertaking, using a blended instrument as a type, we look at the financing type, which include grant, concessional loan, and the commercial banks or a commercial debt, and that can be sourced from a multilateral development bank, governments, and the commercial bank side of it. ESG metric which need to be comply with is the emission reduction, and the ROI for the financial institution comes from the interest and share in REC. REC is normally called the renewable energy certificates, because if you are doing energy transition, there is a additional benefit you get as a part of the REC, which is tradable. And the source of repayment, what the bank, what the institution or a business has to do, so they get from the operating profit and the share in the REC. So there's a learning globally. Whenever you go on a ESG journey, there's a 3 to 5% bottom line improvement with a very low cost or no cost investment. That they just basically, when you are on an ESG journey, you remove a lot of waste, whether we are talking about the financial resources, human resources, or a physical consumption that go on a reduction side, or energy for that matter, or water. So that's basically that's incorporate the operating benefit or reduction in the operating cost, which contributes directly towards the bottom line. So these are the different examples of financial instrument which can be used and how they can be structured there. There are certain framework. There is a green bond principle. There is a ICMA. That's ICMA referred to the International Capital Market Association. The sustainability linked bond principle. So these are the different principles and the products which are designed as a financial instrument and which are being used in a different part of the world. Particularly, we have seen a significant adoption of these financial instruments in the last 3 to 4 years. Carbon credit, just because this is a topic which keep coming back as a very interesting topic. So the carbon credit practically is an incentivization mode or incentivization instrument. It's not the instrument where we have seen a lot of people talking about that I'll create a project and the entire ROI will come from a carbon credit. That's not possible. The carbon credit is basically additional incentive other than the operating gains you will get to subsidize the investment which you are going to make initially. So it's a de-risking mechanism. It's providing an additional ROI to incentivize investor to work in that particular industry. And there's a process. Normally it takes from a initiation to the credit, it takes somewhere 2 years time, starting from an ideation to project design, validation, registration, development of the project, monitoring of the project, verification, then the issuance of the credit, and then the transaction. And there are a lot of stakeholders which are involved. Normally any project, even a small or big, when you start, it costs minimum $60,000 to $75,000 to go through that process initially, and minimum $15,000 to $20,000 annually for the validation and verification going forward. So when you are doing a ROI on a carbon credit side, do consider that there is a cost of verification and the issuance and registration side. So any benefit you are getting from the carbon credit is an additional benefit which you will which can be used to subsidize the project or create additional ROI. But the core objective of the business or the core objective of the project should remain the operating profit. Another benefit of any project to be registered for the carbon credit is that as soon as you are registered and you are eligible for that registration, or you are eligible for that carbon credit, you can access the Global Climate Fund, which is highly concessional funding, which you can access through the certain agencies within the countries. And those basically help you to subsidize the cost of capital significantly, not because there is an additional carbon credit, because the project is qualified and now it's qualified for the climate fund at a very, very reduced cost of capital and including the grants. When we are looking at the sustainability linked bonds, we are talking about SPTs specifically. SPTs are the something which is called sustainability performance target. What does it mean? That if you are going to issue a bond or if you are going to issue a sustainability linked loan, so as an organization, you have to commit to a certain target, whether emission reduction or energy efficiency or a waste management or a biodiversity. And as soon as you achieve that, there is a concept of step down or step up. So if you achieve it, that means your cost of capital will go down. Whatever the margin or a profit rate they are charging or a markup they are charging, there will be a certain adjustment in that, anywhere between the 50 basis point to 100 basis point, just because you are, in addition to your financial targets, you have achieved your sustainability targets at the same time. That require external verification, which is called normally it's called SPO. It's a second party opinion. There's a reporting and disclosure requirement for such a loans or bonds, and then there is a certain governance and the board oversight which is required. So most of these items are already there, like governance and board oversight. Most of the cases the organization have reporting and disclosure components are there. One way or other, they are complying based on their internal cost initiative. They are already using certain sustainability performance targets, so that can be capitalized here. So that compliance or the board direction or a shareholder direction can be capitalized with the lowering the cost of capital. And then most of the time organization do have their auditors to verify whatever they are for their financial performance or financial reports, so they can add the sustainability measures or a performance measure in that. So my only point is that some of the stuff is already happening within the organizations. It's a time to review that with a different lens and how you can monetize that. So this is something which is a great lens which you can use to monetize on the opportunities which you are doing either way. Again, there's a term you will encounter when you are talking about the climate finance is called green taxonomy. Green taxonomy is a standardized mechanism through which you classify your economic activity or a business activity into resilience, mitigation, and adaptation. Right now in KSA and most of the Middle East, they are using EU taxonomy to classify the projects under resilience, mitigation, and adaptation. And based on these classification, that's basically help the investor that to allocate capital. And there is a certain defined term. So you are not using your internal definition, you are using a global standard, and KSA and Middle East is also working on their nationalized or a national level taxonomy. But right now, most of the time, when you are working with the climate finance, there is a EU taxonomy which is being used. Just a regional example, UAE has already allocated 1 trillion dirham under COP, I think in COP 28, they have announced that. And from there, they have already dispersed over $10 billion in the last 2 years under the sustainability linked loans. And those loans have got a very specific sustainability performance target. We are seeing that trend catching up. We are seeing that trend coming to KSA at the same time. And we are also seeing more and more climate fund looking at KSA to come up with the project pipeline so they can access funding. One thing you need to remember, there is a more money available in the market compared to what people are accessing. And most of the time, issue is not the access to capital. The issue is the access to those project pipeline which have got a right kind of sustainability performance targets. Any question before we move into the last part where we are going to talk about the market size and some of the criterias around the loans? Wasim sir, any question burning question which we need to pick up now?
There is only one question. I appreciate if we know the key KPIs governance set in KSA in this regard. Naimuddin, ACCA and FCMA.
Okay. So Naimuddin, most of the KPIs are linked with the emission reduction and energy efficiencies. And then the third one is coming on the recycling. So these are the three primary areas which are the most important one KSA coming out of from the Vision 2030. And regardless of the industry, if you can really start tracking and measuring these three KPIs, that will help you to take it forward for your financial instruments as well as loans. Again, going back to the market size, there is almost 40% annual growth. We have seen in the last 5 years, the market has grown to 650 billion, and in another 2 years, we are seeing it going to the $1 trillion, and all is linked with the sustainability linked bonds. So it's significantly a bond market, but linked with the sustainability KPIs. And based on that, we are seeing a certain traction. That's mean there is a demand from an investor side, and there is a project pipeline which can use that kind of demand, which is coming from the investor. So again, going back to the current challenge, investor have got a mandate. They want to invest in a sustainability linked projects, but most of the businesses are unable to really present their projects and provide them with the right quantified sustainability KPIs, like names are picked up, what KPI I should be looking at. So the KPIs we will be talking about significantly in KSA case is the emission reduction, energy efficiency, and the recycling and the reuse or a circular economy side. So these are the three biggest one and the primary one. Market, what driving that one? So there is a certain regulatory pressure. So if you look at the Nordic region, they have a mandate to invest in Middle East, but for their mandate to invest in Middle East, the Middle East has to provide them with a certain framework that what to track, how to report, and how these people will getting the information and data around the progress, particularly on a climate action and emission reduction going to be the top of it. So they have got a regulatory pressure that whatever investments they are making, they should be considering the overall climate footprint as well as environment and the social risk in that one. Pricing innovation, the step up and a step down is a very good pricing mechanism as a coupon which is coming with the bonds now. So if any organization which does better than the target in terms of their sustainability measure, they get a certain reduction in terms of their cost of capital. And the investor confidence, again, we have seen the major losses due to the climate induced disaster. So now every investor is looking at either in terms of the physical risk like the flood and the wild fires, as well as transitional risk. Transitional risk is that what if there is a change in the global laws or a local laws, how it's going to impact the investment positively or negatively going forward, like the building code or energy conservation and efficiency codes. Again, that exists in KSA. The requirement of going to a 50% renewable energy. So all these are the transitional risks which investor has to identify and make sure that they invest in the organization who are ready to address these kind of risks. Just a quick look at that: sustainability linked loans, bonds, sustainability linked derivatives, sustainability linked supply chain finance. So there are different examples which you can use in terms of a very specific funding requirement. So based on your transition plans, like we picked up the step 4 and 5, based on your overall target and linked transition plan or initiative, what kind of financing you need. So you can really choose from that menu that this is something which you need, and what are the sustainability targets or material sustainability performance target which you try to link with that. Every country right now is trying to create a success around it. Or today, if you go and access and work with your bankers, that these are the kind of financial support you need, and these kind of sustainability performance target you can set it up. If you are talking to the right people, they will be very excited because they have to provide a certain visibility back to central bank, and the central bank has to report to the government that how they are driving the green financial instrument within the countries. So there are different funds which might have a different kind of requirement. If you are working with GCF, Green Climate Finance, Green Climate Fund, or GEF, or there are multiple other multilateral development banks who are willing to work with you, just look at their criterias. What are the fund criterias? What are the sustainability linked financial instrument alignment there? And what are the example of the sustainability performance target? So if you are working with any fund which is a impact potential, they will tie with the measurable outcome like the GHG reduction. If you are talking about the fund which is looking at the sustainable development, then you have to link it with SDGs. If you are looking at the innovation, which is a new financial structure, so you are looking at the blue bonds, you are looking at the blended instrument. So there's a lot of different criterias you can use based on who you are talking to, which fund you want to access, which bank you are using, if you are using a bank as an intermediary there, and what kind of industry you are in. So this is basically create a framework. It does not give you that this is something you have to measure, that you have to go in a specific scoping and discussion, but that gives you an overall framework where to look and what to look for. Similarly, flexible pricing models, we have seen that again, UAE has already shown that as a $10 billion deployment. So that's mean there is a project pipeline, there is a appetite within the banking system, and the bank can also access the global funds as an intermediary, and they can blend it as a low cost financing solution for these transition projects. Just a couple of examples from a real world side. So Eastern Pacific Shipping, $500 million in that. If we are talking about energy, $1.5 billion in sustainability linked bond. Olam International, again, which is basically using a water use intensity reduction in the water use as one of a key area. And then we have got many more. If you will go and Google or go to the right sites, so you will find a lot of financial instruments which are being deployed. So reducing the carbon portfolio intensity, that's mean per dollar when we are talking about intensity, that's mean carbon emission per dollar of revenue or per dollar of investment. So these are $6 billion which are invested in 2023. We are not talking 25 yet. There is a more numbers which came out very recently. Similarly, Belize Blue Bonds, which is a conservation breakthrough, that's a very good example, where $364 million were invested in a blue bond to develop the natural conservancy. And you can see that in KSA, the natural solutions are coming up, and in land conservation we are talking about, that's mean there is a certain green bonds which can be used there. And if we are talking about preservation of a marine life or doing anything with the water, you can also look at the blue bonds at the same time. Again, SPT framework, that's something which we will be sharing with you. If you are on an energy side, what are the example of SPTs? What are the benchmarks? What you need, like what are the best practices around it? So in a different sector, if we pick up energy, it always comes down to the GHG intensity or a renewable energy. When we are looking at shipping, we are looking at the CO2 per ton per mile reduction. That's a fuel efficiency. And if we are looking at the manufacturing, it's emission intensity and the waste reduction. And there are proper benchmarks which are available to measure that. So we cannot come up with our own definition. These definitions are already there. So just coming back to the process side. So there is a one process we discussed earlier as well, that there has to be a MRV system. MRV mean measuring, reporting, and verification system. It's not the technology, it's the system we are talking about, that how you are capturing data, how that is being reported, which standard you are using for reporting, how that data can be verified with the underlying evidences. So MRV system is the first thing. Whatever technology you use or you maintain in Excel, MRV system means that you have an end-to-end tracking of data generation, governance, its reporting and verification process. Public disclosure is a one thing, that whether you disclose it on your website, starting with your narrative that why you are getting on a sustainability journey, what you are going to achieve out of this one, and by when, 2030, 2035, we have seen the targets for 2073 as well. Then the quality of data, the underlying, again, being a finance professional, you have to see that how the data is being collected and how we are verifying and validating and transforming that data, how secure is that process. And then the third party verification, particularly if you are talking about sustainability linked loan. So sustainability performance targets should be verified by the third party, and generally it's your auditor who verifies that. There's a very interesting example. You can go more in detail, but I'll just give you one example. Amazon Living. Again, it's very close to what in KSA we are trying to do on a land conservation or building that 10 billion trees. So this is a very relevant example what's happening in Amazon. They have created a component or a complete financial structure which include the local NGO and their responsibility. They have provided them with the commercial capital, concessional capital, and the grants. And all this put together, it has created a mechanism to fund the local cooperatives and generating a non-timber revenue. Non-timber revenue, that means they have created a revenue stream which is not coming from cutting the tree and using the wood, but actually it's using an urban forestry mechanism where the high value herbs or high value plants are harvested under the agroforestry models, and that generate more revenue for the local community or the people who are responsible for that, as compared to the value of the trunk or the value of the wood coming from the trees. So they start protecting those trees to get a consistent revenue stream from a non-timber side, which is high value herbs or flowers, and they use the profit of that to repay that commercial or a blended finance instrument. And they have created a complete governance models around it. So investment coming from a commercial capital, concessional capital, and the grant goes to the certain governance structure or an intermediary, and that intermediary extends that blended finance or a low cost funding to the local cooperatives. Those cooperatives use that funding for the non-timber revenue like the herbs and the entire value chain and the supply chain. The sale of that herbs and flowers, that bring the money back, they repay the loan, and then the authority in between, they repay that loan to the concessional capital provider and the commercial capital provider. So these are the normally structures which are designed for these kind of blended funding. And this is a one example, and there are many examples which have been used. It's more like a syndicated loan if you are working in a treasury. So how to syndicate a loan, and then how to really create a one escrow account and a one responsible entity or authority which basically combine the commercial, concessional, and the grant funding, and then create a low cost funding for the ultimate project owner. Just to look at the success factor, it's SPT selection risk, like the INSAB also raised that what SPT or what ESG metric I should look at. The enabler is always which climate fund you are going to work with, which bank you are working with. They will provide that criteria rather than you come up with your own criteria. Verification challenge, again, you can offset that. Its enabler is that from day one, it's just like how you manage your financial data and the financial information. It's the same way you manage your ESG data. It's just that normally you record that what is the cost of energy. Now you have to record how many units you have consumed, and there's a globally emission factor. You can calculate what emission does it mean. So you have to now for your material topic, you have to really capture and record your statistical data to support the subsequent reporting, measurement, as well as verification. Market acceptance, like how you will make it understandable for your investors. So definitely, again, like I said, you have to start from a step one, your stakeholder motivation and what are the narratives you would like to build, and then how the ROI will work before you go to your stakeholders. And the data quality issue, again, inconsistent or unavailability of sustainable performance use again the MRV side to really handle the data quality and use a blended finance model to have a low cost financing there. While you are working on a market development, I'm sure there are certain regulators, people from a financial institution, people from a business side. The first thing, start integrating the sustainability linked financial instrument into your climate fund pipelines. So if you are a bank, start looking around that what are the pipeline, what kind of sustainability performance target they can work on, and then start customizing your product, and then take your product for financial institution, take your product and pipeline with GCF and the GEF and other climate fund, so you can access a low cost concessional funding and a grant, and then blend it with your commercial capital and bring it to the project owner. Flexible pricing, that's on both sides, the business side as well as the financial institution or a fund have to sit together and create a model which can incentivize on the both sides. So if you overachieve your ESG and the financial performances, that's been the risk of the financial institution is going down. So they can really bring a little bit discount in terms of their pricing side of it, and go with the sector specific SPT framework. So if you are a financial institution, like I mentioned earlier and I shared earlier, that every sector has got a different SPTs. Don't try to use a one sustainability performance target framework for everything. And verification infrastructure, definitely that's an important one. The more data which is coming as a verified one, so your ESG scoring and rating will start improving at the same time. Similarly, it goes with the confidence of management and the financial institutions who are working with you. So just on a last slide, it's all about innovation, accountability, and global scale. What is the future when we look at the sustainable finance, particularly from a capital market, real world climate impact, and looking from a financial resources access perspective? It's all about how you innovate, how you use the instruments which are already given in a Paris Agreement, starting from debt to nature swap, the carbon credits, sustainability linked bonds, Sukuk, Sharia compliance, ESG compliant instruments as well. So there has to be a certain innovation, and innovation cannot happen only on a one end on a financial services side. The businesses have to sit with those financial services and create the new instrument, or they have to work with the capital market and funds and have that kind of consultation and collaboration. What is the requirement? How you can work on those transition plan, what you can measure and report, what financial service can do, where they can bring the concessional finance or a grant, how they can blend a new instrument which can include, just like Amazon Living, where the commercial capital, concessional capital, and the impact capital all was blended together to make it easier for the local community to go for a non-timber revenue. So this is something, as a finance professional, there is a certain expectation that they should start working on a innovation, accountability, and create something which can be replicated globally. Luckily, within the KSA, you have got a lot of frameworks to leverage in. You have got a lot of examples coming from Europe and other countries as well. We are seeing more and more information and regulations and the disclosures coming from the GCC countries. So I think there's the recipe is there. Somebody has to, ingredients are there. Somebody has to just use a recipe and create a meal out of it. So that's the role which we are looking at from a financial professionals, to leverage this opportunity and create access to new type of funding, which is concessional, which is patient, and which is directed towards something good, creating or preserving the nature for the generations to come. So I'll take a break here and we can go back to questions. And I'll bring a stepwise slide again, because I think that's the most important one to look at. What is the step 1, 2, and 3? Okay, so now we are open for question. Wasim sir,
okay, we have many questions. Let me read one by one, and then you can answer one by one as well. So, question from Azim Sheikh. My question is that will the validation and verification costs spent on entity will be covered by the carbon impact claim in any investment on top of profit?
Normally, it's not such a huge cost. So for the SPO, normally the second party opinion or a verification, the cost is similar to audit fee if it's quite a huge one, or more. Most of the time, it's a fractional one. But yes, if you're going with a blended finance model or a decarbonization strategy, you can blend that cost as a part of your total funding requirement. It's totally allowed.
Okay, next question from Zores Afshar. I hope I pronounced correctly. What are the major risks to existing business in KSA down the road if they don't go for ESG?
I think the biggest risk right now, any business who is not going in line with the Vision 2030, we call it in our language, and I'm sure in the ESG language, we call it a transition risk. The transition risk means the law will change in a way that you will not be able to operate. For example, there is already a law in KSA for energy conservation and efficiency. So if a one building is supposed to be built based on 110 watt per square feet, and then they are square foot, and if they start consuming 120 per square foot as an energy, there is a penalty around it. So even at a design stage, and if there is a building which is already is already there, and that has to require a renewable energy, or that require a reduction in the energy consumption per square foot, so that's mean they have to invest in a transition plans. And if they don't do that, either that building will not remain usable, or there will be penalties which will be imposed. So that's what happening right now. If you are seeing a building code coming out, and if you are seeing a energy conservation and efficiency codes coming out, so that's been right now it's voluntary. Maybe in a 6 months time it's become mandatory, because that's how it happened in most of the countries. First they did the consultation, then they issued the codes, and then they asked the compliance, then they asked the compliance at a design stage first, and then for even the existing buildings they have to go for that. And the way it happened in KSA historically, that's a one directive will change the entire thing. And that directive, by the way, is already there. Significantly in 2026, there is a lot of mandatory requirements which will be there. If you look at the current laws, which are voluntary adoption, that are going mandatory in 26.
Okay, the next question is from Amir Bhatt. How much maximum credit can be availed as a percentage of finance cost as a carbon credit?
Normally, from a project cost perspective, the carbon credits are less than 1 to 2% of the total project cost. So carbon credit does not go beyond that. So if you are doing $100 million project as an investment, so the maximum carbon credits you will be achieving in terms of the financial term is the $1 million or $2 million max.
Okay. Same, I think this is also from Amir Bhatt. For UAE corporates, credit can provide some data, but what about KSA? Is there any credit already announced and provided to some organization and sector, or it's just a first step? I think he has already mentioned about CMA, and if Mr. Sajid, if you can add further.
So there are transactions which are in pipeline. There is no big transaction. Like if you ask me whether the commercial banks have lended $10 billion worth of financing in a recent past based on the sustainability linked loan or a financial instrument, no, it's not there. But the PIF, based on their own investment, they have ESG as a criteria, but those are most of the time is a equity. So from an equity investment perspective, the PIF has incorporated the environment and social impact. The funds have incorporated for their equity the environmental and social impact as a screening criteria and the performance criteria going forward as well. But from a loan perspective, there's no major transaction so far which is executed and we can use it as a reference. But there are a lot of discussions happening right now, given the current liquidity situation of a commercial banks in KSA. I think they are looking for a more modern and innovating the financial instrument which can access the climate fund and can channelize that to the businesses in KSA.
Great. He's also asking another question. Is there any minimum funding required attached to the carbon credit as assigned? You said there is one-time cost of $75K and annual cost of 15K. And he's asking the percentage of carbon credit assigned to healthcare sector.
I think we have to elaborate that. What does the percentage mean there? Because the carbon credit is a process. So we have to go through that. Even to assess that whether there is a carbon credit or not, there is a complete process there, which costs somewhere like $60,000 to $75,000 initially. Then if there is a carbon credit and it get issued, then annually there is a certain verification process which costs anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 minimum. When the credits are issued at a registry level, they also charge commission. There is a brokerage commission, there is a transaction fee and all that. So add another 17-18% to the proceed of the carbon credit as a part of the cost. And the pricing of the carbon credit depends on whether you are on a voluntary market or mandatory market. So the price vary between $3 to $11 per credit if you are in a voluntary market with a very high integrity carbon credit. If you go to the mandatory market or EU or somewhere, the per credit is somewhere like 60 to 80 euro. But that's require a very different standard to follow, and that does not mean that any country can create a carbon credit and go and sell in the EU. There is a proper process and listing. And to go through that process, there is an additional cost, but there is a better pricing as well.
Great. There is a question from Amir Muhammad. He's different Amir. He's not the same one. Who are the international seed capital provider who help set up local levels funds for climate investment initiatives? And he asked something about Sharia also related to AAOIFI, Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Finance Institution, Bahrain. Yeah.
So that's the institute which provide the guidance around the Sharia reporting, like financial reporting on a Sharia compliance, as well as some of the audit guidelines, how to audit that one. So definitely, if you are doing anything on a Sharia side, so that's a best framework you can deploy there. From a seed capital perspective, if you are talking about a seed capital as a for the startup side of it, so there are different funds who have got their own mandate and the criteria. But in KSA, the best one is PIF. Work with the PIF, and if you qualify for that, so there are certain incubation fund which is available. If you are talking about a large organization who is planning a transition, and we are talking about anywhere between $100 million to $500 million, then the key funds which work on those areas are the GCF and the GEF, ADB, World Bank. So these are the key multilateral development banks or the GCF type funds who work and provide that kind of capital, and they have a struggle. Like I'll just give you an example of European Investment Bank. Every year, European Investment Bank is short on their deployment by 20 to 30 billion euro. That means they have money sitting with them, but they are unable to deploy that because there is not the credible project pipeline. A lot of people put together a paper, but once they go in a KPIs and the performance criteria and an MRV system, how you will measure it, how it will be reported, the governance structure, so they do not find it very robust, and then they can't fund it. So they, for the last 2-3 years, there is an underinvestment from their side.
Great. The next question from Syed Irfan Hussain Rizvi. Where can I get the basic KPIs and reporting information for energy sector? And let me add my question also for the same topic, that as finance professionals, we are not very much champions like you. So how we can upgrade ourselves to this area, particularly ESG?
Said any finance professional who is working on a reporting side or ever worked on a reporting side, any financial report, even the trial balance or transaction recording, number one, they are as competent as anybody else there, right? So competency is not the issue. Interestingly, if you want to look at the KPI, you have to go back to IFRS. So look at IFRS S1, S2, and there is when we look the IFRS Sustainability Initiative, that's a separate reporting domain like the financial reporting and then the sustainability reporting. They have got a standard called SASB, and there are KPIs available by industry. For 77 industries, they have provided the KPIs what to crack, right? So it's available within our own financial domain coming from a IFRS. The second standard somebody can use particularly for energy is the GRI. GRI has also a global reporting initiative. They have also published the KPIs which are relevant for energy sector or transition of energy and what to report. Third area is the UN SDGs. They also have got like 17 SDGs with 190 or 200 plus KPIs underneath. So they also have got the KPIs determined. But most interestingly, within the Vision 2030 and the regulatory regime under the renewable energy, KSA has got their KPIs as well. So they are all the superset and the subset of the same KPIs. So when you decide about your own organization, which energy sector you are in a transmission, generation, distribution, it's a renewable, it's a fossil fuel. If it's a renewable, it's a solar or wind. So you can narrow it down and you can find those KPIs very specifically, which are applicable to KSA by regulation or directive, and which are applicable to the industry by standards like IFRS S1, S2 or SASB, or you use GRI as a one of a reference. By the way, GCC itself has got a GCC harmonization ESG codes. So they have got 31 standards, which also include what to buy. Oman has already issued and UAE has already issued their KPIs for energy sector. So these are available there and they all are the similar one. So when I am talking about the different directives and that there is certain national priorities, but more or less it's the same KPIs with the exact same definition.
Great, great. Question from Rashid Aslam. He's from Pakistan. I'm working as manager internal audit. How can we have to check ESG compliance in the construction business? Now,
Guys,
people are in the construction.
Pakistan,
Yes.
from a Pakistan perspective and KSA both. The first thing in a construction industry, you have to look at the code. There is a building code. It's available in Pakistan as well and it's enforced. It's available in KSA and it's enforced. The second is the energy conservation and efficiency code. It's available there and it's already enforced both in KSA and Pakistan. Third is your EPA, Environment Protection Agency. They have provided the complete guideline for constructions. And non-compliance means the building can be closed and demolished. So construction industry and the real estate sector, guys, be very, very careful around this. Now, going forward, we are seeing the demolishing the real estate, which are totally non-compliant, which are, we call it the environmental hazard. The buildings which are environmental hazard, those are going to be demolished. The one which are not the environmental hazard, they are breach or they are non-compliant, they need to do a retrofit investment. And the one which are at a design stage, believe me, your design is not going to get approved anymore unless until you comply. In Europe, they have all, other than the codes, they have already added a requirement which is called the life cycle assessment of carbon. That's mean from a construction to demolish stage, like for the next 50 or 100 year, what kind of carbon emission that building is going to generate based at the construction stage, based on a use stage when it will be demolished, and when the rubble will be removed, the waste, construction waste removal, as well as when it's demolished, how the debris will be removed from that. So everything has to be accounted for. If you can't provide that life cycle assessment of the building in Europe, you can't get approval for a design.
Great. Another question, any specific percentage of carbon credit assigned to healthcare sector in KSA? Do you have any idea?
There's no carbon credit percentage allocation. The carbon credits are generated by the healthcare when they do something in a way which help reduce the carbon emission or remove the carbon emission. The funding allocation could be a separate question, but the carbon credits are not allocated or percentage of a carbon credit. It's generated by the project. So actually the project is responsible to generate that.
Great. And another question, what are the KPIs for financial service industry? It's a general question, if you can say something about this.
In a financial services, there are two KPIs, and that's a very important question there, because that's where the most of the banks and the financial services are struggling. There is a one KPI which a bank or a financial service company has to look at. We call it their own carbon footprint. So own carbon footprint means that when they are using energy, they are opening up a branches, and how they are generating a carbon emission through their own operations, right? That's mean whatever I'm doing, whether I'm traveling, I'm using energy in the cars, I'm using energy for lighting up or heating or cooling of my buildings. So energy is the first thing, which is a major source of emission from the own operation of the banks. But the most interesting one, every financial institution and particularly bank, they generate 700 times more emission through financing. So that's mean the industry you are financing and the projects you are financing, you are also responsible of that emission. This is the key KPI. We call it financed emission. And there are very specific standards in US. You will be surprised. In US, there is a global standard. US has got additional standards to really measure that kind of financed emission. So if I have financed let's say there is a $100 billion worth project, and I have funded $20 billion on that fossil fuel energy generation plant, and that plant is generating, let's say, 100 million carbon emission every year, I am responsible for 20 million of that emission automatically, because I have funded 20% of that. So this is the key KPI for the financial services, and this is one of a KPI where the mandates are changing, and the shareholders, stakeholders, and regulators are saying, show us what you are funding and why you are not. When we talk about the green financial instrument, this is one of a major issue for the financial services industry, that they have to fund the green projects, or whatever the projects they have funded, how they are working with them for their transition. And that's where the businesses have got the leverage, go back and talk to the bank that these are the green projects I am adding, fund that, it will help you to comply with your central bank requirement in KSA and in most of the countries. So financed emission is one of a key KPI for the financial services side of it.
Great. Next question from Ghulam Muhyiddin. Apart from compliance requirement, what other benefits can be materialized by adopting ESG standards? Could you please highlight?
Compliance is the last business case. Like if you look at the step 2, we talk about the ROI model. If you can't figure out a ROI model, compliance is not the only thing you should look at. Unless until you can monetize the compliance, you will not be able to sustain it. So, and we are talking about voluntary compliance. So in a voluntary compliance cases, most of the organization will not go for ESG journey. The biggest benefit, for example, if you are in an industry which is working with Europe, right? So Europe has got a law which is called CBAM. You cannot access a Europe market, or you cannot keep a Europe market if you are not going on your ESG journey. You may choose that there is no compliance requirement in your country, but you cannot access new market if you are not complying with their requirements. So the one of the business case which come to play is the access to market. In Middle East and including KSA, you will find a lot of people who will not stay in a hotel if the hotel is unable to provide the carbon footprint, because business travel is one of a major scope 3 emission measurement which US and the European and the Asia Pac, the large organizations, are looking at. So if I'm executive of a Google, Amazon, Microsoft, so I may not be staying in a hotel, I'll not be doing any event in a hotel which cannot provide me the carbon footprint which I'm generating, because I'm supposed to report, and not only report, if I'm coming from a Europe, I have to offset it by 80 euro per metric ton. So if I do an event in KSA in a one hotel, and I generate, let's say, 1,000 metric ton of emission here, I have to pay 80,000 euro in Europe to offset that one. So that's one of a key requirements. So the business case or a ROI for for the hotel industry is not that they have to comply with that locally. They have to attract the customer who need that kind of information. In Singapore right now, the government official cannot attend any event in any hotel unless until that hotel is properly green and LEED certified or have a green certification like Edge of IFC. So there has to be evidence that they are tracking, they are reporting, and they are certified by the third party. 2.1 million new rooms are coming up in the Middle East in journal. So it's almost $1.8 trillion, which is right now invested in a hotel or hospitality industry in total within the Arabic speaking nation. And all are going green, and 500,000 rooms are already delivered there. Just because those are green, now these big events and the organization, they can allow their executives to stay there. So there are different ROI model and the use cases you have to look. So it's a access to funding, it's a sales growth, it's access to new customer, it's access to new market, it's a cost reduction. That's a bare minimum use case you should look at. Even if you are going for a compliance, the cost reduction should be the one, because you are removing the waste. So if you are doing it in a right way and you're tracking, it should reduce your operating cost. Reduction and attracting talent is another one. Gen Z and Gen Alpha and the later stage of millennial, they do not work with the organization who do not care about the environment, right? So there are a lot of business cases which comes out other than the compliance. And if you are going only for compliance, believe me, you will consider it as a cost rather than the investment. If you change your lens, that compliance can be monetized and that can generate the right kind of ROI. So change the lens from a cost and compliance to investment and opportunity.
Very good. Anyone else? Any other question? Please write so I can ask. Otherwise, we have to end up this session. Let me ask you a question, Saji Saab, that mashallah, all the things are very thoughtful and very helpful for the for organization, for countries. How, but they are people are not very much familiar and enthusiastic about implementing these things, especially in third world countries. So, how do you see that this will implemented there in near future, or how I mean, they are bound to do this. If you can highlight something about this.
Sure. So I think it's not the first cycle we are going through that change where the new financial instruments are coming up and new reporting requirements are coming up. So we have seen the countries with no accounting standards moving towards IFRS. We have seen that transition from IAS to IFRS. We have seen the financial instruments from a very regular to going towards very complicated financial derivatives as well. We have seen the capital market share just working on the equity scripts, and then move towards the debt one, and then the derivative, and then including the future of the derivatives as well. So I think it's always a journey. It starts with the awareness. It's that's the first step, and that's where the role of ICMA and Wasim, we really congratulate you to bring it there. The first thing is always about understanding, awareness, education, capacity building, and that's where it starts. Believe me, the capacity which we are talking about, talking to people here, we might right now, it seems that I am the one who is talking. You will find that in a 6 months time, most of the people who have joined today, they will be bringing out the products for their businesses and the financial services or the financial institution, which will be may more interesting and innovative what we have discussed today. That's the part of the collective wisdom, and that's the part of the ICMA membership when we talk about it. So awareness is the first step, and ICMA as an organization, as an institute, I think this is the first step you can do. The second step is that give the toolkits, right? So if there is a basic awareness, then the second step, bring the templates there. Like if we are talking about Pakistan, IFRS S1, S2 reporting is already mandatory here for the listed company. Similarly, in KSA, the certain internal reporting from a financial services or a bank to the central bank is mandatory. Tadawul is already working on a different framework, and it's becoming mandatory for the listed companies going forward as well. So these are the things which will require from ICMA type institutes or the institutes who are working with the finance professional like yourself, they have to provide the templates and the guideline that what they can use as a tool for a reporting to start with. Second template you will be bringing is like the term sheets, how the financial instrument look like in term of the term sheet, that what are the terms, what to follow, what to track. And these two things, the reporting templates and the term sheet for the financial institution or a financial instrument put together, will create that relationship that where they can access the blended finance. The fourth step will be going beyond that call of duty and start engaging with GCF, GEF, and bringing them to your event, letting them tell your members that what kind of criteria they are looking, what type of problem they are facing. Because we know their biggest problem is not the money, their problem is the project pipeline. So if you can really bridge with that knowledge, with these templates between the members and the GCF and the financial institutions who are working on these kind of capital or concessional finance or a commercial finance or a climate focused funds, so that's mean you will be bridging that gap and you will be creating that network and collaboration between your members and the institution, so they can create that network and go to them and leverage that relationship to access that blended funding. So I think these are the step-by-step things which you can bring as a ICMA. And this is, again, the first step you have already taken, and not only in KSA, in other countries as well, where you are generating that kind of awareness. Next step would be the template for reporting. Third is the template for financial institution. And the fourth will be a network. Simple roadmap.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sajid. Let me tell you one thing. ICMA is the first organization in education sector who has implemented ESG report 6 years back, and since then they have been implemented. And I was there as director of finance working there, and I lead this project. So Alhamdulillah, I totally understand each of your word, how important it is for finance people, and how important it is. So I'm very pleased that a very good number of audience have attended, and we are very much concerned about this topic. And I think this is the future, as you already mentioned in your speech. So we are submitting a report every year with our audited accounts in our annual reports since last, I think, 6 years. And Alhamdulillah, it is going well. So I think this is the future of our finance. And absolutely, what a great session we had from your side, and I'm really impressed the knowledge you have and the information you have provided. I'm very much thankful to you for this valuable session. Hashim bhai, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Yes, Hashim bhai, if you want to say something, you want to say thanks, or from branch point of view, Hashim Saab is our branch honorary secretary. And Hashim Saab, if you can say something about this topic as well, and something, please, over to you.
Bismillah Rahman Rahim. First of all, thank you, Sajid Saab, for your time and very much informative sessions on such an important topic nowadays. Because I am looking at almost all the branch councils are working on it, and I have attended 2-3 sessions on the same topic. But today's topic, honestly, it was very informative topic and very informative presentation. Even in the comments, many people are asking for this presentation, if you can share with us, so we can share with the participants for their use. Secondly, I'm very thankful to the audience as well, who have attended this session on a very short notice. I'm sorry with Mr. Wasim for the delays in the preparation of flyers and everything. You know the reason behind. Anyway, Alhamdulillah, it was a good session. The most I like is the example of this Amazon was outstanding example to understand these things. Finally, I will thankful to everybody who has joined and spared the time for this session. And we will try to invite Mr. Sajid again for same topic or with some additional topic on this, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Sajid sir, if you want to say something before ending,
Now, I think thank you very much. I think it
advice,
takes a lot
anything.
of. No, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and taking out time. I know that over the weekend everybody is busy. We can still see a good attendance there. I love the people we normally call the bold one, the early adopter one, who really take the first step to understand. So we are seeing a lot of people who are here today, and I'm sure they will talk to their colleagues and their, if you're accountant, I'm sure you have got juniors as well, and you will let them know what's happened, what are the keywords. I'm sure normally in a lecture it's a 10-20% retention, and I'll be sharing the Wasim Saab with you the slide deck. Be open, share with the attendees, share with the, feel free to share it wherever you can. So it's a something we call it, it's a giving something back to society from our side. So we are available to conduct further sessions as well. KSA is something which is very important for us. It's a, within the GCC, KSA is the one which decide that what is the direction of the economy would be going forward. So they have got a lot of influence given their sheer size and the population. So this is one of an area which is very close to government of KSA, and they would like to see more and more people get trained, in-house trained rather than using consultant. So right now the focus, I was in KSA and I had a lot of interaction. The focus is that rather than going through a consulting route, they want their talent, in-house talent, to be trained on these areas, and those can drive the business as well as within the public sector. They should be the key driver for this information and knowledge. So there's an opportunity we see. There's a scarcity of this talent. So ICMA is a great example, which is upskilling and reskilling their members, and the finance people are always best settled or best in terms of the background, who can pick up on this information and take it forward. It's not very different than what you do on a reporting. It's just sometimes on our part we add some fancy terms, but it's the same terminology. When you will drill it down, you are using in a financial or management reporting side of it. It just have a little bit different name, but it has the same concept. Particularly ICMA one, who is coming from a cost accounting and management accounting background, you have seen the importance of the statistical information. We use the word intensity, you use the word cost per unit. It's the same thing. It's just a different term, right?
Yeah.
So it's a ESG term is intensity. You talk cost per unit. We say emission per unit, and the term is intensity. So nothing different. It's a unit economy which we are talking about. You talk about the kilowatt hours as an energy consumption. We talk about that, the kilowatt hours and the emission through that kilowatt hours per product or a per unit of product. So these are the same things. It's not very, very different for finance, and particularly coming from a cost and management side. It's a very simple, straightforward thing. It's just that don't get confused with the new terminology. When IFRS came out, so they used a lot of new terminology which confused people, but in a year's time when they start reading it, it was the same thing which they know with a different term in a different part of the world. Some of the new concepts were introduced. Similarly, there will be certain new concepts you will encounter in ESG, but it's not going to be any rocket science for the finance professionals. So
Great.
don't scare. Take a first step. And most of the people have taken this first step today.
Yes, true. Thank you very much, all of you again, and Sajid Saab, special thanks to you, and you accepted our invitation from KSA branch, and inshallah I have something in my mind to carry on this process. I'll discuss it with you privately, and I think with that we end our session. All of you are thank you very much, and please take care. Bye. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.